half the things that you learn in your degree is no longer relevant. Here's your penalty, this
Bad
is
boy.
Yeah, go to see the principal.
So disappointed in you.
Yeah. If you want to teach them a new system, then you use restorative justice.
Alright, hi, my name is Adriel,
And my name is Yan Ping.
and this is the Teo-logy podcast. So, we are at the part 2 of what we actually do. You hear what we do, you think you know what we do, now we tell you what we do. And today, it is my privilege to then ask Yan Ping. So, recap last week, the last episode, you heard how I went about going about doing things, how I did things, why I did what I did. So today the flow will be the same. And I'll be going about asking how she goes about that, and maybe prod a little bit more on certain points that'd be very interesting for your sake to hear and go about what she does. Yeah. So without further ado, shall I begin?
Yep.
Same goes with what you did to me, and now my turn to do to you. Give me the elevator pitch. If someone only had 30 seconds to hear you share about what you do, how will you go about it?
So job-wise, right? I work for an organization that focuses on education, but specifically for underprivileged communities. So we support teachers or even communities where education is not at its best. Usually it's poorer communities in Malaysia. And my role specifically, I might change roles from time to time in the organization, but currently what I do is I design modules to help train teachers, government school teachers, as they serve these underprivileged communities.
Okay, so let me just think it through, right? You create modules. Quick question, right? So what I'm hearing is, as a teacher, I already gone through my training, yet I still need more training. Like it sounds really tiring.
Yeah, it almost sounds redundant, right? Most people ask me, I thought teachers have gone through their whole training course. Why do you still need to train them when they're in schools? And my response is usually in 2 points. So the first is innovation. The second is in contextualization. Innovation is because education moves so fast. I would say by the time you finish your, say, 4-year degree, education degree, someone has proved a different way of teaching already.
Right.
One example I can think of is last time we talked a lot about classroom discipline. Now we say discipline is, well, not to say discipline is bad, but we talk about building a culture of learning and using restorative justice when there is a breakdown, students are acting out in class. So if you had learned the rigid disciplinarian kind of way in school or in your uni, then when you went to teach in school, like me, what I've learned is no longer relevant.
Right. And for the sake of the listeners, there was a heavy word that you used, and which I think a lay person might not be able to catch it, which is you're saying now in schools they are learning this term called restorative justice.
Yeah.
Could you give me a bit of
learn.
or should learn? Yeah. Could you give me a bit of a history or why or what's this word?
Yeah. So that was just an example of different things that change over time, right? But basically, instead of focusing on punishing the person the student who has been doing wrong, it's thinking about how do you restore the person onto the right track in class. So the conversation that you have with the student can look very different from just, okay, here is your penalty, this
Bad boy.
Yeah, go to see the principal.
I'm so disappointed in you.
Yeah.
But instead, you help them reflect and then help them see how to restore them.
Yeah.
And this idea didn't exist within Teach from Malaysia, right? It was borrowed off somewhere.
Yeah, it didn't start in the education realm. It actually started when people were thinking how to rehabilitate convicts. So people who have very rough backgrounds, the only environment they know is violence, right? But if you want to teach them a new system, then you use restorative justice.
Oh. Instantly, I can see how that is lots of patience, intentional, and time-consuming process, right? To do something like that.
Yeah, you kind of need to do quite a bit of rewiring as a teacher in the classroom.
And then it takes time to rewire the student.
Yeah.
Because if the example is using convicts their whole life.
Yeah.
Violence, yeah.
Yeah, and it's very big for us because when you work in underprivileged communities, the background that kids come from is sometimes very rough, and that's really the only way they know how to communicate.
And this is by no means trying to say that the opposite of restorative justice is retributive justice, right? Something's wrong, they has to be paid rightly. It's not to disregard that. It's to highlight the need for restorative justice.
Sure.
I think what I like about that word, right, is actually it's very much biblical for a Christian. I mean, the Bible functions, if you read properly, yes, there is retributive justice, but there's a lot of restorative justice at play, where if the person is a widow, they have to be taken care of. In Jesus Christ, you are from a sinner to saved, from a from an unwanted child to an adopted child.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of restoration of the person's identity.
It's very similar in concept in the classroom.
Correct. So that actually, and that can be practiced everywhere else, right? As
Yeah,
a convict, how can you bring him back to the humanity which he can relate to once more?
Yeah. But that was just one example that I used to explain why, as teachers, we still need to upskill even when we have entered the classroom. And that's why I call innovation.
Okay.
So actually the second point that I had on why my job is contextualization. And it's because in Malaysia, the terrain is very wide, very, very, you could get posted anywhere as a teacher, right? So you could get posted in a gangster school, in a big city, or you could get posted in a indigenous school in the pedalaman, in the outskirts, right? And the approach to teaching will be very, very different. When you learn in your degree, of course, they try to cover as much ground, but there's only so much you can cover in a general education degree. When you go to the actual place you're posted, you realize that you need to specialize so much more. And so that's why my job is going to the region and seeing, okay, what are the needs of the teachers in this area, and customizing that learning experience or the upskilling experience for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, sorry, you want to continue?
Oh, I thought of just giving some examples, but
Oh, okay. So now I'm just trying to say, as a layman person, right? What I'm trying to get is like, your organization seeks to provide education to meet the education inequality. Okay. Inequity.
yes.
Yeah, education inequity. Yeah, see,
Okay, Google to find out the difference.
yeah. And specifically, what you do is you create these modules, design these modules to help train the teachers in the context of innovation and contextualization. And so, why you exist and why your job is important, it is because the world is constantly innovating, and there are so many contexts available that perhaps one pedagogical method may not be the wisest way to go about it.
Yeah.
And your role is to enter that space, understand that, and see how to go about it, right?
Yeah.
So could you walk through with me then the process? So imagine a layperson, right? What are your steps? Let's just say I'm a teacher.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm sitting in front of you right now, and you're going to do this thing to me. What is this thing that you're going to do?
Yeah, it's very exciting. So, because there's a whole world of possibilities, right?
Right.
So, step number one, of course, is figuring out what is the thing that we're going to input to the teachers. In technical terms, it's called scope and sequence. But really, what it means is, going on the ground, speaking to people, and figuring out, what are their needs, and we will choose these topics to input to the teachers, and in this order. Yeah. So once that is done, that's usually stage one. Then you can go into developing your modules topic by topic. So I'll walk you through how I would sit down and build a topic from start to the end. Even if it's a topic that I have not heard about myself. Because the world is so big, right? There's no way I can know everything about education, but I can still design something and learn about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's say topic A has been selected. What I would do is I would first do my research.
Perhaps to make it better, right? Like, give me an example what topic A could be, and then speak in that context.
Okay. Let's say, let's pick an obscure one like culturally, or maybe, Yeah, maybe let's use back the previous example,
The gangster school.
the restorative justice.
Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah. So let's say I'm doing a topic on restorative justice. I didn't go through it in my degree, so what in the world is this thing, right?
Not even in your school as a student, right?
Yeah. So first step is do my research. So Google, read the literature out there. You can even ask ChatGPT, right?
What other sources do you have? Just Google only?
Of course, under Google, there are like journals. There's
Yeah.
like
Right.
strategies in the classroom. There are
Right.
a lot of famous teacher websites.
Just rabbit holing.
Yeah, rabbit hole the whole way. Ask experts. So sometimes, for example, if you want to learn about orang asli education, right, you go talk to orang asli people,
Yeah.
professors, so on and so forth. So, but you do need to cap the time that you spend to do it because it can be endless.
Yeah.
So spend X number of hours doing your research, right? So that's stage one. Stage two, okay, after I have understood enough about it, then it is to draw some principles for my teachers. So how do I make it in a way that is digestible for my teachers? I can't take the 10,000 results from Google and like chuck it to them, right? So
Right.
figure out in a very neat package what I call the how key points most of the time. How do you do this thing? Narrow it down. Okay, so that's drawing my principles, stage two. Stage three is communication. So how do I communicate this package to my teachers? Very often the first part is actually buy-in. So what I realize is as a teacher, I'm very good with pedagogy. I'm very good with teaching kids. But teaching adults andragogy is a totally different ballgame. You first need to convince the person that it is something relevant to me before I walk into that session, right? It's quite easy to get away telling a kid, oh, you need to learn algebra or differentiation.
Right.
But for an adult, it's like, am I going to use this tomorrow? If I'm not going to use this tomorrow, I'll learn it another time.
So you're saying one of the many challenges is craft. Did I get it right? You want to craft the buy-in.
Yes.
So you know that there is an importance.
Yes.
But how you present that buy-in to them?
Yes.
Is it okay if I dig slightly further? Like, so give me an example of how you want to craft the buy-in for restorative justice then.
So we call it framing, right? And sometimes it is helping people. Oh, that's the second thing. Adults have prior experience that they bring to the table. They're not just a blank slate, right?
Right.
So a lot of times is asking them a prompt question or a starter activity that helps them bring in their experience to the table and say, what are the usual things that you encounter in your school? What kind of describe 3 students that you have that you find extremely challenging, for example. Yeah, so with that, then they will be able to make connections with what they're going to learn, that okay, this is something I can apply that will address my current situation.
So what I'm hearing is that, speaking of scope of the what the teachers need, the topics that they need to identify, even within that restorative justice, there is a scope of teachers that would have been like low-key doing restorative justice without knowing that they were doing it.
Yes.
And those who have to unlearn everything they have been doing it.
Yeah.
Because they recognize, hey, I've been doing it in a very not healthy manner.
Yeah. So on that note, how do you leverage the people in the room as well who are learning to learn off one another, because they come with their own experiences and they can share best practices. Yeah, so that's very different with adult learning, right?
Correct, yeah.
So
wait, very different from student learning, you meant?
Yeah, student learning. Adult learning is very different from student learning.
Okay.
Yeah, and having that approach that I might be teaching you one thing, but you can definitely teach me something else. Yeah, so we're more of peers in that journey rather than a top-down.
A collaborative, but you facilitate the conversation.
Yeah.
Style. Okay.
And the second thing, of course, is even if it is a totally foreign topic to an adult, it doesn't mean that they can't learn it for themselves. So very often, one of the techniques that we use in a workshop facilitation is this thing called jigsaw. You can go and Google it. But essentially what it is you can read for yourself, right? Why don't you read it and you teach someone else in the room?
Right.
And different people read different parts, come together and piece the puzzle together. Yeah.
Okay, so sequence, doing the research, finding a topic, get the how-tos. What's next?
And then the communication.
Communication, the buy-in, right?
the buy-in and the how do I engage with the material.
Right. Okay.
How
Okay.
do
Okay.
I leverage on the teacher's strengths to actually teach one another?
Right. Okay. Okay. And then is there more?
So the final step, of course, once you have run, say, the workshop, or it could be even a hands-on experience, once you have done it, is to figure out whether it was effective. So that's what we call the evaluation stage, right? Usually what we do is, or what I do is I hand it off to the next team, where the team of coaches will actually go in and do class observation to see whether the teacher is able to apply the skills that we taught, as well as provide more personalized support to the teachers for their particular context. So I'll check in with that team and go like, oh, how did that happen? Is there any feedback? Could we have done things differently? So then you get to measure the effectiveness, and then the cycle continues for the next topic or module.
Okay, I would say as a layperson, I was able to follow and capture. But here comes the next challenge, right? So assuming that me and your listeners will want to hear the buy-in, okay, of all what you do. So can you share us why you do what you do? So what's so meaningful for you to engage in all of this for someone who has never heard? Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me on a personal level, my specific role is exciting because it keeps me up to date with whatever's happening on the ground. But on a general landscape, why I am involved in this and why am I part of the organization, even if I changed roles, right? I really do see the joy of impacting a teacher's life, especially someone who is struggling in a very challenging school or situation. And in that, just a little bit of input, being able to make their life a bit better, their relationship with their students better, and see the students come alive as well. I remember recently watching a video of a teacher who went through our session, her classroom, and to this day, honestly, I have not met her yet. She's a teacher in Perak in a B40 school, and she was applying one of the techniques we taught, which was how do you control noise level in the classroom. And I was like, wow, what we did here can impact someone in
All the way there.
all the way
Yeah.
there, never seen before. And the other cool thing about design is that I don't necessarily have to execute it. So sometimes if you do a really good design of a workshop, you can pass it to someone else and they can run it. Usually we pass it on to another teacher, right? You empower teachers to facilitate other teachers. And when you see them run it exactly with the same impact as if you had done it yourself, then you're like, oh, that's a pretty good design.
Yeah, and I think one thing that's really cool is also like you are doing what you do because you know someone else out there who share the same values for the love for students or growth or education will respond to that. And all that. But in all that, I'm hearing this is a really good space. You get to do something, you get to rabbit hole deep dive and create something cool out of it, right? And you want to see how. I think one of the why you do what you do is the privilege to be able to see the tangible ripple effects. The point where you're saying someone is doing what you do and you've never met the person before. Yeah, I think that's really cool. So in that sense, right, in that space, right, what are at least some of the things that you think you would like to improve on in this space?
We talked a lot about buy-in. Honestly, that is, I feel, my weakest point in design. I think I am pretty good in packaging something to help people understand and how, like, here's how to do it. But I think the downside to me being an eager learner is I expect that everyone's kind of in the same page as me. It's hard for me to remember that, some teachers are really burnt out. Some teachers had a really rough week, and when they come into a workshop, it's the last thing they want to hear. So focusing on the buy-in, or what we call framing of the message, is something that I would love to grow more in. And sometimes a lot of it has to do with just taking perspective of the other person, as well as being creative. Sometimes you can organize it in a game or a case study to get people started.
Yeah. And so you want to improve in the two things I'm hearing within the space of a buy-in. It is a buy-in that is flushed with a sea of empathy. And it is a buy-in that is poised for ready engagement. Empathy engagement, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I think that is all already that I have to ask, right? And no, thank you so much, Yambing, for sharing. So for those who are interested to work for in Teach from Malaysia, you have a foretaste of what this might be, and it is something you resonate.
Unexpected promotion.
Yeah, but really making the point here, right? The whole point I'm trying to say is, if you resonate with what she did, now you know where you can begin and where you can start as well. Yeah, so I guess that's it for now.
This is the Teo-logy podcast.
Till next time.
Bye.
Bye.